Lane, thanks for joining us. Lane Cardwell, president of Cardwell Hospitality Advisory, and is a board member of it or advisor to several restaurant companies. He's on the board of an 80-unit Saudi Arabian restaurant group and is the past president or CEO of Easy's, Boston Market, and PF Chang's. He also spent over 10 years as chief administrative officer at Brinker International and has been on the board or senior management team of 44 restaurant concepts and has opened over 1,800 restaurants globally. So Lane, thank you for being here and thank you for being part of a very important discussion around the restaurant industry and the thought leadership to this short, but as long as you want interview. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Cool, and Randy, thanks for joining us as well. Randy is the founder and chairman of the board of Front Burner Restaurants. Front Burner is a concept development shop and holding company for restaurant brands they create and grow, including Whiskey Cake, 60 Vines, The Ranch at Las Colinas, Haywire, I Declare, Twin Peaks, Mexican Sugar, and Velvet Taco. Randy's also a co-owner of a 30,000 square foot food hall called Legacy Hall in Legacy West in Plano. He was a CEO of Front Burner for 26 years beforehand, and during that time frame was also the CEO of Twin Peaks and Rockfish Seafood Grill, which I believe was your first concept, or at least one of the first ones of Front Burner. Really appreciate you bringing your expert insight and foresight to this webinar today. I'm looking forward to an enlightening conversation.
Thank you, Michael. Actually, Michelle's Coffee Bar, if you see the t-shirt frame there, was a short-lived little coffee bar cafe in Snyder Plaza across from SMU, which was my humble start. And I shut it down after the first year of pain and reconcepted it into Shell's apostrophe S Oyster Bar, which is still there today. Although I sold the business to a partner I had, and he's still plugging along, doing great.
You did get a wife out of it, though.
I did get a wife, yeah, Michelle. The concept failed, the marriage succeeded.
Yes, very much.
Appreciate it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again to everyone. So let's just kick it off. I think, again, we're looking forward in this discussion. And it seems that the restaurant industry is under more guest scrutiny for safety, probably than any other industry except for the airlines, cruise lines, and certainly the hotel industry. So I'd like to hear from Randy, from you specifically about your brands and what you're doing going forward to enlighten and elevate the consumer's sense of safety and confidence, that you're taking all the measures needed or desired to give us all that good feeling of coming to your brands over other options we may have in the marketplace.
Sure, Tim. We are meeting all of the requirements and exceeding them. That's what I think it takes to be successful as a restaurant operator, to exceed guest expectations. I read the most encouraging Facebook post this morning. My wife pointed out to me while we were having coffee, and she said, look, this lady just went to Haywire last night and she hadn't been out the whole time. This was her first time to go out. It was their anniversary. They were there last night, and she detailed everything we're doing, you know, from everyone in masks and gloves, the open kitchen, every cook is in masks and gloves. Some of them are even wearing face shields. We have a new position on the dining room floor, and they really roam the whole restaurant. They're wearing a white lab coat. You know, we like to have a little bit of fun in our restaurants, and we can't lose sight, as serious as this virus is. We can't lose sight that when people go out, they're going out to be entertained and have a good time. So this position is called Dr. Sanitizer, and we have logoed lab coats. We have sanitizer squirt bottles in their lab coat pockets. They're wiping down every table after the bussers bust the table. Then the Dr. Sanitizer comes by and sanitizes it. And when they're not doing that, they're wiping down every doorknob, hand pull. There's an elevator in Haywire, so they they go through and wipe down all the elevator buttons and everything. So it's really fun. I mean, you see people watching them through the dining room, and then they start to chuckle and smile, and so
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
That's great.
have
That's
fun and
great.
make people feel comfortable. That's
Yes.
our motto.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Lane, what do you think? How can a restaurant differentiate itself from others on safety? I heard recently about this copper-based paint, for instance. I think that might have come from you. I'd never heard of that before. I guess it's a virus-killing agent. Air filtration systems, table distancing. I mean, what are you seeing out there right now that restaurants can do to help also feel that safety?
I haven't heard of the copper-based paint, but it's all the little things right now. You've got restaurants that are opening the doors for guests so they don't have to contact the door handle. Right now, it's just all the little things. And what Randy pointed out, it's that visible thing that reminds you that the restaurant is taking this seriously, even when they have fun with it. The neat thing about what Randy described is everybody's going to pay attention to what that person is doing. They may have been doing it anyway, but dressed up like they are, it really calls attention to it. One of the companies I work with in California, they kind of walk through all of the different points of contact with the guest. And one of the things they do is the carry-out bag that goes to curbside pickup. The employee carries it out, holding it from the bottom so that the handles have never been touched by an employee. I saw a TV ad recently, and it showed the drive-through pickup window, and it showed the employee with a tray handing the bag on the tray out to the guest, who picked up the bag, and the bag was never touched, at least in front of them, by another employee. Right now in Dallas, we're undergoing the assault of the Hillstone Restaurant Group, who is a wonderful, wonderful organization, one of my favorite dining out experiences. But I think they picked the wrong point in time to dig in and say, this is our experience, take it or leave it. No masks for employees. Guests can wear masks, but employees cannot. And one of the big taboos right now is not taking care of your people. And it's been on national news, and they'll have a hard time digging back out from something that they've spent 45 years building.
Yeah. Absolutely. Randy, going forward on you have existing floor plans, you have existing seating, the restaurant is designed a specific way to operate a specific way, but going forward, what changes are you going to make in your existing restaurants as it relates to the distancing of tables, some other ways perhaps of paperless or digital pay, digital ordering, anything like that that's come into mind? And then as you think forward into new plans, new restaurant development, when that day comes, what design changes or construction material changes, operational changes do you see in the restaurant of the future?
Sure, Tim. There's so many projects going on right now. I don't think our team has put in as many hours. I'm talking about the home office support center team in our history, and just the sheer number of small projects that are going to end up making a big difference, like contactless menus, where we have QR codes on our tables right now, and you put your camera from your smartphone over it, and it shows you a link. You just tap on it, boom, and there's your restaurant menu right up before your eyes. So we're also offering disposable menus, but we don't think long-term that's a good solution, because just the sheer waste of throwing all that paper in the recycle bin. And we're watching, I mean, we just launched this a week ago, but we're watching the guest last weekend anyway, we launched it, and the guest is, adopting it really quickly. We think it's a no-brainer. That's the way restaurant menus are going to be displayed in the future. We'll always have one at the host stand for someone who forgot their phone or just doesn't want to use that. But personally, of the age where I appreciate a backlit menu and to be able to pick it up and zoom with your fingers and read everything. The other thing that I think is really exciting is contactless pay. So, we have handheld devices that are still in the, I wouldn't call it rollout stage, it's still in the testing phase. Where the servers can come to the table, they can enter your order from a handheld tablet, and you can pay on the same tablet. The original tablet design had a credit card reader with a dip in for the chip. But now there's near field communication enabled into that device. So you don't even have to dip it in the device. You can just hold it up. The server can put the tablet near your credit card, and boom, it captures your data. To go is a huge part of what is helping us get through this closed dining room and slow reopen phase. We got back probably on average 15 to 20% of our former sales by pivoting March 15th and putting up these makeshift drive-through lanes and going after the curbside pickup business. And through the crisis, we turned on a couple of delivery companies. Prior to this, we really didn't go after that business at all. We didn't have delivery contracts in place. And, we just believed we stood for experiential dining. We wanted people to come to our restaurants to experience the brand. When that became impossible, we went after it. And as we started announcing the reopening of the dining rooms and put reservations back up on the system, we monitored social media chatter, and the most common message we were getting was, wait, what about the meal kits? Please don't take those away. We enjoy the meal kits, especially when you can throw in a bottle of wine, a 6-pack of beer, or a cocktail kit. You can make old fashions at home. Those of us who are in the business don't think twice about making an old fashioned at home. Most consumers don't know how to do it, and they're intimidated by that. So you show them a meal kit, and you can even include those big, super clear blocks of ice and a rare 375 milliliter bottle of bourbon that's hard to find, orange peels, a little mini bottle of bitters. And they get to go home and make a world-class old-fashioned, just like they would get at Whiskey Cake or Haywire or the Ranch. And they post it on social media. They're so proud and excited about what they've done. So they don't want to lose that. So we're scrambling right now to put in place online ordering, how to adapt our physical plants so that we can keep the to-go business and reopen the dining room simultaneously without it looking like a bomb went off in the kitchen or the bar. Right now, Tim was mentioning right before we got on the show here that he saw that line of cars wrapped around Whiskey Cake in Plano.
I saw that too.
Picking them up. Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. We had $100,000 week straight to go out of that restaurant.
Unbelievable.
And it's been bouncing around depending on, whether it's Easter or now Mother's Day. We're going to have a really big weekend, but that restaurant is probably our best one at executing to go. And they turned Whiskey Cake into Whiskey Cake kitchen and grocery instead of kitchen and bar. And that's what drove that traffic. We had toilet paper when no one else did. And people were coming for it and, picking up a meal kit. We probably had record high check averages through the COVID-19 too. The average check was, over $60. And it's, you know, some exciting stuff. So we learned a ton. It was a crash course in how to execute to go, and we want to keep it. So my construction department is working overtime trying to figure out how to modify our existing buildings. We have 2 restaurants under construction, 3 actually under construction right now. And, you know, how to, before we finish and get our C of O there, how do we incorporate a to-go area into those restaurants and keep this part of the business?
And I know, and I've been in one of those lines, Randy, and they move remarkably fast, and not by the old-fashioned kit, but that'll be on the list.
All right.
Lane, you had questions actually around the difference of to-go and how you do the kitchen, and you had some really interesting insight and question around that. Would you like to, you know, throw that out to Randy and you guys chat about that idea?
He covered some of that, but one of the things that's been really interesting coming out of this whole situation is the amount of experimentation that restaurants have been forced into doing. It also has forced our guests to accept things that they may not have considered before, and they find out they like it. Probably the transition to no menus in a restaurant would have taken 5-10 years to have accomplished. We'll be there in a month. And the guests will thank us for it. We're the only industry I'm aware of where your credit card actually leaves your site to pay for a meal. And that's going to go away with contactless payment. A lot of things that would have taken a long time to transition look like they're going to be with us pretty quickly. Like Tim, I drove by and saw the long line at Whiskey Cake. It was 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, and I went home, got on the internet, looked up Whiskey Cake to see what special they were running, or maybe giving away food, or what I hadn't heard, and that explained the line I saw explains the $100,000 volume. It was incredible. I think the meal kits, the cook at home option for restaurants has suddenly opened up. I'm in a unique situation with my Saudi restaurant group. We have 4 concepts. 2 are casual dining. 1 is fast casual, like a Chipotle. 1's grab and go for airports, office parks, universities. In Saudi, half the population has their face covered all the time anyway. So that's not unique. What we've had to go through is there was an immediate 24-hour lockdown of all citizens. They were not allowed to leave their homes except to go to the grocery store 1 time a day. We had no pickup, we had delivery, but no restaurant pickup, and had to pivot quickly to meal kits, videos on how to cook each menu item. Most Saudis don't cook at home. They go out to eat for most of their meals, or they have drivers go out and pick up their meals from restaurants. So to be thrown into a stay-at-home situation, a lot of citizens, they got the food, they didn't know what to do with it. The other unique thing in Saudi is, this was in the process of changing, was there were always 2 dining rooms and 2 entrances to every restaurant. 1 entrance and 1 dining room for single men, 1 dining room and 1 entrance for families and for women. In the last few months, that's been breaking down where you could integrate the dining room and have 1 entrance. But we have probably 60 restaurants with probably 70 with separate entrances. We're going to take half the dining room, turn it into fast casual, takeout, delivery, pickup. The other half will be dine-in. Many decades ago, I was in Australia and saw a concept that had 1 kitchen. Half the side of the restaurant was fast casual, half the other side was dine-in, same menu. You just kind of picked the experience you wanted. So we're going to get a chance to test that in Saudi. But everything's up for grabs. The thing that I think has been most impressive with what Randy and his organization have done is Furlough Kitchen. I think that any organization coming out of this will be judged again, not just by what they're doing for the guests, not just what they're doing for their people, but what have they been able to do for the community to see everybody get through this. I heard Randy talk about you have to survive to thrive. And surviving is going to be more than just being there in the end. It's what people think about you when you come through it. I can assure you that they're going to think very highly of Randy's restaurants and his organization, as well as people. Sharing tips with people who aren't even, able to work at that time. It's an amazing thing to be able to do.
Yeah. We've heard great stories from many restaurateurs on them giving back, and you're right, Lane. That's huge, and people are going to be loyal to those restaurateurs for sure coming out of this.
Every restaurant company would love to do something, but most found themselves in a situation with just trying to keep the lights on. For about a week, a lot of restaurant companies, found a way to feed their people with the food they already had that wasn't going to be sold. But to find something that was sustainable the way Furlough Kitchen has been, that's an idea that, could live on.
Yeah.
But it was really a real tribute to you.
I tell you, Lane, that was the most satisfying thing I think that we've done. Like you mentioned, there's all the evolution that was happening in the restaurant industry was suddenly accelerated, and including Furlough Kitchen. So Front Burner Restaurants, we pride ourselves on creating our own brands. We've never bought a restaurant concept, maybe someday, but we enjoy so much the creative process. And after the first week of shutting down all the dining rooms, pivoting, going after to go, we started on a Monday. By that Friday afternoon, I had invited a handful of our executive leaders, from each brand to meet at Haywire. And, since it was closed, we thought, that's where the best bourbon selection is. Why don't we meet there for a cocktail at 8:00 Friday night and decompress and share our experiences, what worked, what didn't work. And we're going around the room and everyone's telling their story of what happened. And we get to Jordan, who runs our catering division. It's called Vestals. We did buy that catering business. So we didn't create a catering business. We bought a really good one. And it specializes in weddings and high-end corporate gigs. And Jordan says, well, all the events canceled, have 10 full-time employees in the kitchen, furloughed them all. We cleaned the place. We froze the meats. We locked the doors. And yeah, there's not much to do. And we thought, our core values, number one is people, and we talk about that a lot. So our people are the most important to us. We got to take care of them. We did that to the best of our ability by keeping the restaurant kitchens hot so we could feed our own people, keep a handful of people employed, but most importantly, feed the furloughed employees who are entitled to come to the restaurant and get a free meal every day. And then second, our community comes second. Those people, our customers and communities we operate in, is number two. And by keeping the restaurants open and providing toilet paper, eggs, grocery items, in addition to the meal kits, we felt like we were doing our best to take care of our communities. And the third is our industry. That's our third people priority. And we said, I don't know, it just kind of hit me. I love going back to the core values for inspiration. And I said, how can we use furlough? We didn't call it that. How can we use Vestals to take care of our industry? A lot of, everyone furloughed 90% or so of their full service restaurant teams. And we knew it was going to take, 4 to 6 weeks to get on unemployment for a lot of people. And then let's just face it, there are restaurant employees who are not going to go apply for unemployment. Maybe their documentation's not pristine. They're afraid of government. They just lack the sophistication to get on the internet. The internet was crashing on the TWC, Workforce Commission unemployment website. So what can we do to help those people? And I just said to Jordan, I said, that's nonsense. We have to reopen and turn this into a community kitchen. And our CFO wasn't there, so we figured. But I heard his voice somehow in the back of my, conscious saying, don't spend any money you don't have to. and so Jordan said, hey, I have an idea. The City Square Foundation is right around the corner from us, our location. I know the guy that runs it. Maybe we could create a charity and take donations. And I said, you know what? I have money in a donor advised fund. I can't, take it out and spend it on myself or anything, but I bet I could get some money donated for that. And Jack Gibbons said, did the same thing. We have money, put into a charitable fund that we could use to provide some seed capital for this idea. And we decided to call it Furlough Kitchen because that word, I had to look it up. I'm like, what is everybody talking about? Furlough. I mean, we terminated people, but, but we want them back. We'd never furloughed an employee in 26 years. And, but our HR and legal advice was, no, you're furloughing people. You're not terminating, you're furloughing because you're going to provide health benefits for them and meal privileges. So it's not terminate, and you want them to come back. So it's a furlough. I'm like, okay, whatever. We got used to that word the first week really quickly. And we decided to call our community kitchen Furlough Kitchen. And
that's great.
And so literally Friday night, we decided we're going to do it. Jordan's like so excited. He's like, I'm going to call people, tell them they can come back to work. And he called the head of City Square on his cell phone at 9 o'clock on Friday night. And the guy goes, I'll do it. We'll set up a web page you can donate to, and we'll get you money. Let's go. And by Wednesday, the next week, we had signage, we had T-shirts, we had a website, we had money in an account he could draw from, and we're off and running. I can't remember the latest, but our estimate was feed 1,000 people a day for 90 days. He's well over 1,000 a day because we started feeding hospitals. Like Parkland calls probably 3 days a week and says, can you send another 300-400 meals? And the catering vans roll out and go. And we bought up all the orange traffic cones from Home Depot and basically shut down half of the street in front of us for the drive-through. And they run food out to your car, and the cars, at 11:30 start lining up, and boom, boom. It's like whiskey cake, but it runs all day and it's free. So we're excited. Jordan doesn't want to shut it down. He's like, we got to keep Furlough Kitchen going.
Yeah.
And so we are, as we reopen the catering business, we are going to put Furlough Kitchen on the shelf and think of it as, front burner to the rescue. Like Jose Andres does. I mean, that
exactly. It's Jose Andres.
He's who inspired me. When a disaster happens, you run into the burning building. You don't run away. You go. And so now we have a model. And the coolest thing is Furlough Kitchen was so successful. We had other restaurant groups calling us. How did you do it? Can you help us? So we actually put a Dropbox account attached to the website. You have to have a password to get into it, but all the documentation, all the procedures, everything we developed is in there. And we've had a number of restaurant companies call us and ask for help, and they were inspired by what we did. So we gave them the password, and boom, they're opening up Furlough Kitchens around the country.
Wow.
The fastest growing franchise during COVID-19.
Unfortunately, it could be your biggest chain.
Yeah. Let's hope not. Let's hope we can get back our economy back going, and we don't need so many of them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of the hiring and just employees in general, I mean, it is, before this mess, it was really hard to find talented employees. What do you see the challenges in hiring?
Yeah, oh, Michael, that is such a hot topic right now. In Texas, unemployment for a successful waiter or server who made $65,000-$75,000 or more. Some, many high-end steakhouses, haywire. We have waiters, routinely pushing six figures. Now they're working hard for it. I mean, nobody's begrudging that. I mean, they're super successful people. They qualified for the top level of unemployment compensation, which is $521 per week, no taxes. And the federal government came in with another $600 on top of it, which, was offered to every single state, I think. And so if you're making $1,121 a week tax-free, and your manager calls you and says, we're opening this weekend, I've got 3 shifts for you, we don't know how busy it's going to be, do you want to turn off your unemployment? It's risky, because it takes a while to get back on it. And these people waited, sometimes 5-6 weeks for their unemployment checks to start, because the system was crashing and all that. And, a lot of them are nervous. They want to come back to work, but what if the business isn't there? You're working for tips. And so we put a $20 floor per hour under their wages and said, if you're willing to come back, we need you. We're going to guarantee you make at least $20 an hour. And we were able to restaff our restaurants with that. Some of the restaurants weren't as busy as we projected. We were overstaffed last weekend, and we lost our shirts. But we're going to take care of our people and make sure they made the brave decision to go off unemployment this early. We're going to make sure they at least walk away with equal wages.
Oh, that's great. In the old days, that would be 3 months ago, you have servers, they're commissioned salespeople. So you want to go where the commissions are best. Everybody tends to get the same percent, so you want a high check average. Then you want a place that's on a wait.
Yeah.
Then once you've satisfied that, now you start worrying about, how am I treated? So it's not enough just to make good money. You want to work, if you have the option, where you're treated well.
Mm-hmm.
Now you add to it, I want to be proud of where I work. And you're likely to get some people back who may make less money, but they're so proud of where they work that that's just not part of the equation for them, to the extent that they can subsidize it. But there'll be a lot of restaurant companies where it's more of a transaction type relationship between the employee and the employer. And you won't see them jumping back, taking a risk. It's going to be for the companies they're really, really proud of. And, they were proud of your organization before this. They will be unbelievable ambassadors coming out of this.
Well, thank you, Lane. I agree with you.
Hillstone, just the opposite, and happened so quickly. I'm just puzzled that they normally, whenever they stub their toe, they fix it real quickly. They tried to do away with American Express back in the 80s. That lasted a week. They made some product changes along the way guests didn't agree with. That lasted maybe a week. This one, they seem like they're digging in on. They were ready to go to federal court to protect their right to have their employees not wear masks. Not an issue that you want to be on the wrong side of the public on.
Yeah. I don't understand it either, Lane. I mean, it seems like in times like this, you should pick your battles, and that's not
Right.
the one worth fighting over.
No,
No, definitely not.
No, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You want to make sure you've got food and oxygen. Self-actualization is way down the list when you're in the middle of a crisis. And the way your employees look in the restaurant is not high on a lot of people's minds right now.
Yeah, I think the consumers are looking for masks. I know we've been going out to eat every night. Prior to this reopening last Friday, we were getting a meal kit from a restaurant every night. Sometimes not even one we own, and just to see what was going on out there, and importantly to stay out of grocery stores. They're too crowded. I mean, I think that's a dangerous place to get your food supply. Going out to eat, I think it was Saturday night. We were at 60 Vines. It was still pretty early, and we decided to go to a frozen custard stand, a really popular one here in our neighborhood. Glass all the way around, you can see right in, and they were doing curbside, or they have a drive-through actually, but they were taking your order on a remote pad. They were super busy, and I just remember my wife looking into the glass, going, none of the employees are wearing masks.
Right.
None of the employees are wearing gloves. And we'd already been in the line for about 3 or 4 minutes. There were cars behind us. And she just, and the 2 daughters in the back seat listened to their mom and looked and went, ooh. And we just drove away. I just thought, okay, they got turned off. We have ice cream at home. Let's just go home. And boy, that really, stuck in my mind. And I remember calling Jack Gibbons, my partner, who's very deep into operations in our company, that night. And I described what happened. And he goes, we have a great supply of masks and gloves. He goes, we're never going to have an employee not up with that, wearing a mask and gloves until, we're out of the woods on this virus. I mean, there's no upside to not providing that personal protection equipment.
Or even if they don't provide it, not to allow it even to be used if the employee brings it.
Yeah, it's just silly.
It is.
That's hard to imagine. Lane, you mentioned a restaurant out of Australia, Fast Eddie's, that actually is bifurcated. You touched on it a little bit on the Saudi Arabia example, but I know you were wanting to open that idea up about separation of kitchen. You want to speak to that for a minute and maybe ask Randy his thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I mentioned that just earlier, but we're going to take that concept. That concept only closed about a year ago in Australia. It's been around about 35 years. And they just took advantage of a common kitchen to satisfy guests that had 2 separate needs. Everybody loved the food, but they didn't always have time to come in, sit down and be served. So they set it up, kitchen in the middle, left side, completely out of sight of the dining room, was fast casual. Go up to a window, order, go sit down, or take it away. Or if you want to sit down and be waited on, they've got the other side of the restaurant. We're kind of fortunate in Saudi. Our restaurants are pretty big. We have 2 restaurants that are 20,000 square feet each, 2 floors. So we've got a lot of room to do a lot of experimentation. It's funny, you never know what the weakness of your restaurant or your industry is till something like this happens. Coming out of it, you probably wished, Randy, you had a lot more of the Velvet Taco type brands.
Yeah.
A few less dining rooms for a while. And it'll be interesting to see as people go forward, whether they build that flexibility into their concepts, where you have, a very dedicated area that doesn't look like it was just an add-on, but was really there from day one. A lot of people trying to figure out how to, as Randy said, punch a hole through the side of the restaurant and make pickup just a lot easier. All of this will accelerate. It was percolating. Now it's on high brew.
It's at a full boil. Yep.
Yeah.
No question. Well, you have large restaurants and a large quantity of them, Randy, but in Lane, you're obviously consulting for larger chains or quantity of unit operators. What advice would you give to a smaller operator, somebody that's an independent or maybe has less than 5 or 10 units as they march through this? Is it match and mirror what you're doing at the big scale, or is there a way for them to do something that adds value to the community or the marketplace or to their team that maybe we haven't touched on?
Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I mean, I would say if you didn't get a PPP loan, there's money available. Go back in and make sure you get your funding. When you get it, don't be in a hurry to spend it. I know the regulations and rules around it are highly encouraging you to spend it all within 8 weeks. Create a financial plan that shows your next 12 months of operation, and don't be enthusiastic about how fast our sales will come back. I think we're in this is not a U-shaped recovery. It's not a V-shaped recovery at all. I think it's more like a check mark. It's going to slowly ramp up. That's how we've modeled out the recovery financially. And, you're going to need cash. And so I would say work with your, whoever handles your finances and know exactly what your break even is. Be stingy with your suppliers, be generous with your employees, and don't pay rent until you absolutely have to. Landlords are all in the same kind of stress we're in, but you have to manage your cash, and landlords can wait, for 3 months. Landlords are likely to get business interruption insurance relief at some point here throughout the summer, early fall. There will be a landlord relief package. Their lenders are giving forbearance. I know because I own real estate that's levered. When we can, we try to buy and self-develop. It took one phone call to our bank, and our loans are immediately restructured, and we got relief. Your landlord's getting relief too. Don't believe them when they say they have to have rent and full rent now. Work something out. If you have to defer rent, push it into next year. Don't start paying full rent in July. The sales are likely not going to be there. So work out your priorities. Our priorities are people first. Suppliers, we have to have food. We have to stay on good terms with our suppliers. They're going to come second. Landlords third, and then R&D projects like putting in new drive-through to-goes or remodeling, so we can do that type of stuff. That money will get spent second on the existing restaurants, and new growth is number 4. So don't, even though you're going to get incredible offers, as landlords get desperate and restaurants don't reopen, don't jump at the chance unless you have cash to recover, and you can pay cash for that new restaurant. I wouldn't borrow money or sign up with an investor who wants some kind of preferred return or something just to finance a new restaurant. Be careful financially. We're not going to be back to normal until perhaps a vaccine comes out over the winter or next year.
That's right. Makes it tough. You have 2 competing forces going on. You have the economic forces, and you can't ignore them. People have to work to eat. Employers have to have sales to stay in business and pay people to work. But that doesn't always line up with the medical side. If the medical side had their way, we would be shut down through the rest of the year. Everybody would be safe. The only deaths we would be counting would be starvation deaths. But somewhere you have to have a happy medium. And, if there is a second wave, before the year is out, as Randy said, you don't want to find yourself only planning for good times and spending your money thinking it's over when it may not be over. And so this will give everybody a chance to kind of feel their way through it. The beautiful thing about 25% is there's a lot of restaurants that never saw 25%. They finally have an excuse. I'm slow because it's required.
There you go.
But you can't get by at 25%. But it does give everybody a chance to feel their way and the guests to come along with them. At some point, we'll come out of this, but there's so many unknowns. It's just a tough situation.
No question. Randy, you mentioned suppliers. As a matter of fact, I forgot to ask you this earlier, but how's your supply chain been, and how do you feel about the ongoing supply chain for produce and meats and all of your goods?
Sure, Tim. We're likely going to see some disruption. So far, so good for our restaurants. Our head of supply chain, Tim Timms, is assuring us we have product. We're not modifying our menus to adapt to any shortages that we see just yet. But it sure is getting a lot of national news. Chickens. They can step up production of chickens, and I can't remember what the time period is, but it's pretty short.
6 weeks, 42 days.
Yeah. So there will not be a prolonged shortage of poultry. Beef, a little different, but what happened was beef consumption dropped so much, the herd is just getting bigger and fatter, and so steak sizes are going up, and that's happening. There may be a shortage of new kills because processing plants slow down, but the herd's getting bigger, so there's going to be a meat supply. We might have to cut some steaks in half or something, and come up with some creative presentations. But I'm not losing sleep over the food supply chain, because we'll have some blips, but there's no food shortage.
Your smallest steak will be a porterhouse.
Lane, is that true overseas as well, as you're working in the Middle East, for example?
Well, everything we sell is imported except dairy. So far, so good. Because of that, we've had to keep a warehouse full of food just in case there are supply interruptions. We have political interruptions. We might have a senior prince get upset with the U.S., and before you know it, U.S. beef is no longer allowed into Saudi. That's where we are right now and have been for 2 or 3 years. We were getting close to that feeling going away and being able to sell beef from all over the world, but we've been fortunate to be able to have a large enough warehouse. We do our own distribution where there's not been that kind of interruption. On the other side, we bought up an enormous amount of our version of the Impossible Burger. Sales of those, because we're only doing delivery, and sales are a lot less. So we're looking at a sizable quantity of that product that we have to sell it or smell it. It's reaching its expiration date, but it's real different doing business there. Delivery's not even been easy. There's a checkpoint every kilometer on the streets to check people's papers, make sure they're allowed to be out. It could take 45 minutes to go 3 miles for a delivery. But it's going on. It's funny, as you look around the world, Hong Kong, South Korea, China, you can draw lessons from each of those as they've reopened. The Dubai Mall one of the busiest malls in the world, opened back up. They opened up the restaurants, and Cheesecake Factory, which has 600 seats there, was on a 6-hour wait. So there's a lot of pent-up demand for people to get back out. They just want to feel safe when they do it.
Sure. And just a couple more questions because we know we need to wrap up. But do you think if we have a vaccine quickly, maybe a therapy that works extremely well, quickly being by the end of this year, let's say, or first quarter of 21, do you think that the consumer and everything rebounds back to its old ways of doing business or going out to eat? Does it have elasticity where it bounces back, or do you think people are coming out of this, will be coming out of this with a completely changed mindset about the future of shopping and eating out and just ways that they conduct their lives?
Because I don't have a full-time job like Randy, I have a lot of time to read and to look at what's being written. The Economist magazine had an article recently called the 90% Economy. And what they focused on coming out of this were behavioral changes. Before, if you walked into a place and saw somebody you didn't know, that might be a future friend. Now, when you walk in and you see somebody you don't know, that could be an unintended enemy, not knowing if they're sick or not sick. They say it takes about 2 months for a behavior to become part of what you do going forward. If people are sheltered in place for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and have a fear as they go out and get food or get whatever they need, that behavior carries forward in some way or another. The desire to socialize may not come out of this the same way that it did before. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of morphing of the industry resulting from this. And again, we talked about some of it early. No longer having to physically hand over your credit card. No longer having to hold a physical menu that when you open it up may or may not have been cleaned. There's a lot of things that just the way that delivery and takeout is handled. One of the things we're doing in Saudi, because it's delivery only for us, when we have a delivery driver pick up the food, we do a temperature check, and this is a third-party delivery driver. We do some ourselves. We will do a temperature check of the driver. We will write it on a little form, and we will attach it to the bag so that you know that we know that when that driver picked up your food, that we knew that they were safe. And it's just one extra thing that we've done to kind of relieve some of the pressure that people are under.
Interesting. Yeah, Randy?
Yeah, it's remarkable listening to you talk about the additional steps that people are taking that you're aware of, Lane. It's, just when you think you've thought of everything, you hear of another step. And I'm making notes. So yeah, I don't know what to expect. What Lane said is true. I mean, I've had my head down. I'm personally dealing with all of our landlords and working on the to-go initiative, working on the online ordering initiative. I did think I was going to go into semi-retirement before this, and that's why my title now is chairman and founder and not CEO of Front Burner. Jack Gibbons is now the CEO. He's busier than he's ever been. So, but what you said is true. We're both working full-time and overtime on the company. And I don't, stray much from our internal company business, but our head of marketing does occasionally circulate an article or something about consumer behavior patterns. And she's providing that guidance of how do we adapt, and what long-term changes are we thinking are going to be necessary. Personally, I've been trying to get rid of handshaking in restaurants for at least 5 years,
Exactly.
just for the common flu. I am personally annoyed when I get to a restaurant and the manager recognizes me and wants to shake hands in the lobby, and then you go to the bar and the bartender's foisting their hand over the bar, hey, welcome to my bar, sit down. And then you might wash your hands before you get to your table, and the waiter's there, hey, shake my hand.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop it. So hopefully that'll go away forever.
What they do in Saudi is the high five.
Yeah. we have a wonderful lady in our development construction department who says jazz hands, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
That's
One of the things I've been following is a research company called Data Centrals. They do a lot of tracking of ingredients and menu items, and they've been doing weekly research studies of 1,000 guests. And the most striking thing is the difference in views about safety by different generations. Baby boomers are going to be very cautious coming back. They're going to be very cautious about some of the things they accept going forward. Generation X, people in their 20s, can't wait to get back out there. Not too concerned about stuff. They're not, always foolhardy about it. But there's a 2-to-1 difference in the concern level between people that are, say, 55 and up, and those who are 30 and younger. It'll almost be like you're running two different brands to satisfy both of those groups.
Yeah, I think that's a key insight, Lane, is not everybody feels the same way. Look, before COVID-19, that there were people who sanitized their airplane seats and drop-down trays and things. I saw that all the time. At least once on a flight or something, you'd notice somebody doing something like that. Now the airline's doing it for you.
Right.
So, but those people are growing in numbers that are germophobic. That segment of our population is much larger than it used to be. Is it going to reduce? Probably not back to where it was. And then, the younger people who are less concerned and, conscientious of sanitation and things, I think that they're going to modify some of their behaviors, maybe not all of them. But one thing's directionally accurate is restaurants have to somehow communicate to the guests that their practices are safe and they're handling food safely and they're managing their employees to keep sick people from coming to work and spreading germs and viruses. It's a huge change. Look, in this country, paid sick leave, what was not 100% enforced, it was not guaranteed. It needs to become that. We have to develop employment practices where employees who are hourly workers and they're living paycheck to paycheck don't make the decision to hide the fact that they're feeling ill or have a fever and still come to work because they need the money. Right. And they're not going to get it if they stay home. We have to change the way we operate our restaurants and manage our employees so that every business can do their part in keeping viruses and germs from spreading.
Do you think off-premise alcohol will remain?
It sure sounds like it in Texas and in Florida, where we have most of our restaurants.
That'd be great.
It'll be an interesting shift. before we wrap up, I have one last question. Was there any question we didn't ask that you wish we had? That's something you'd like to share or feel that we may not have covered? We bounced around on a lot of topics.
Well, I mean, Tim, I would like to just say I really appreciate you and your firm, Falcon Realty Advisors. You guys, people aren't anxious to go out and sign leases right now, and you guys live off of real estate commissions, and it's not like you went away. You rallied behind our industry and promoted restaurants, stayed close to your customers. I think that was really wise on your part, and it feels good to be a client.
No, well, thank you very much. We're proud to have you as a client, I assure you. And it's been wonderful to see our entire team really do everything they can to try to stay very close, very connected with all of our brands and brands we don't represent, just to see what they're doing and how they're doing things differently that we can openly share. And we're a little late with this interviewing process. There's been so many webinars that we've watched, and it's like, we really want to see some best in class thought leaders in our industry share some. And God knows you two are some of the top 2%, 1%ers in our industry. So it's been fabulous having you spend some time and just share your personal vision and insights. I would ask on a personal level, last question, and we talked a lot about business, but on a personal level, what's impacted you the most over this very short amount of time that you believe you'll be taking with you as we go forward as a major impactful change on a personal level?
For me, it's realizing that you never know what's going to hit. I mean, who would have thought that we would have been asked to close businesses, restaurants, people stay at home? So then it's almost like you're playing musical chairs and somebody took away 9 of the 10 chairs. And you realize that I wasn't prepared for the music to stop. I think, I've been fortunate, but I see and I've worked with so many people that I know were not ready. If they'd had 3 months notice, they could have been more ready. But literally to have something happen so quickly, you realize how tenuous so many things are in life that you take for granted, that you suddenly realize could go away very quickly. It's very sobering.
Well said. Randy?
Well, you said what has affected me personally. I would say doing stuff like this, getting even more connected through our industry and partners like your firm, and realizing that we're all connected. I mean, you have to be a good partner, and we have good partners at Front Burner Restaurants, and every one of our partners has stepped up with help. I mean, I can't tell you how encouraging some of my landlord calls are. And, I'm not even negotiating yet. I mean, we don't know when we can pay rent, and get back to full rent, much less amortize some deferral of rent. I mean, they all want answers, but I just tell them my story and I go, look, here we are. And I created some charts and graphs. Here's where sales were, boom. And here's where they are now. And we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, but here's my break-even line. And, we are so far away from that. We're still burning through cash.
Yeah.
And, for landlords to think, oh yeah, but you need to pay me back in July and August and get everything caught up. Well, maybe if I had some really far below market rent where it's not meaningful, but a lot of the restaurant deals we made in the last 5 to 10 years, even since in 08, 9, 10, maybe even 11, we were making awesome deals. We have some of those legacy restaurants that are enjoying below market rents, and we'll have to catch those up quicker. But the deals we did last year where the restaurant just opened, there's no real connection to the community or awareness yet. To go isn't even working very well. We're limping along at $2,000 or $3,000 a day when the restaurant's supposed to be doing $20,000 a day. And those landlords, you know, sometimes expect, you know, you got your PP loan, pay me, you know, give me my piece of it. And I'm like, no, I got to have that to survive. You know, what if I run out of cash in July and we're still at 50% sales, I'm losing money, and you're not going to have a restaurant. Neither one of us are going to have a restaurant. And, you know, let's work together on a plan. And once it sinks into them, where this industry really is, they've pretty much all come back, not all of them, and said, okay, we get it now. Thanks for all the data. Thanks for the education. And how about if we do this instead? And, you know, they're willing to abate some rent. They're willing to push it off into next year, work on a percentage rent deal only. And it's incredible. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. You know, the real estate industry doesn't want more vacancy. No. And they're behaving, generally speaking, really well.
Cheesecake Factory, I think, waited 1, maybe 2 days after the shutdown of dining rooms to announce no April rent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you knew things were bad. They went out very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's only been a couple of months, isn't it? Something happened in 60 days. Well, thank you both. I mean, like we said before, having you two on is, and we just started this. We're going to try and do a series of these with thought leaders, but none better than you two to kick it off for us. And we love our industry. We love being a part of your family, Randy, and we'll get through this, and we're all going to have some fun in the upcoming year 2, 3 as we dig out. But thank you again. Yes. Appreciate it. Maybe the Japanese bow is what's about to come in vogue. Right? I like Lane. Lane, that's kind of cool.
I don't know, Lane. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate it. Love you both, and stay well for sure.
Thanks
very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
See you later.